The United States officially withdrew a large amount of its military operatives from the country of Afghanistan in 2021, ending a multi-decade military campaign that had cost the lives of thousands of soldiers. Since this retreat was neither strategic nor victorious, many painted it as a defeat. Once again, the supposed leader of the free world had been forced to prematurely end a conflict it could not bring to a satisfactory end. The President of the United States, Joe Biden, presented this as a date for celebration, the conclusion of a chapter closed and a job well done. Yet, the world could see that there was little pride to be had and even less to celebrate. The abrupt conclusion of the Afghanistan campaign has been considered by many economists and political analysts yet another sign of the decline of the United States as the global defender of capitalism and democracy. A modern Vietnam. Politicians on the left and the right quickly pointed fingers at the other side of the aisle and accused them of bringing this once great nation to the brink of economic and social collapse. And if one is to believe only the headlines, he could be excused to think all of these discourses to be laying out the foundation of a doomsday scenario, where America, powerless and humiliated, gives up its crown to China as the whole world trembles. But is any of this true? Is the United States fundamentally diminished by any relevant economic metric? Welcome to Rebel Economics, where today we seek to answer the question, is America in decline? Or will it still lead the free capitalist world for many years to come? Please consider subscribing if you have not done so. It really helps a new channel like this one, and it is a great way to let us know that the content we produce is well received. I have experienced that Europeans take an odd pride and joy in the failings of the United States. They look at the flaws of their system and smirk at themselves, perhaps not openly admitting it, but with a comment here and there. I believe this to be a mistake. I think this feeling comes from a place of deep insecurity and quiet yearning for a past when the center of the world was in Paris, not in Washington. I think to a certain degree, all of those that openly argue the inevitable downfall of America with glee experience a sort of ignorant schadenfreude. It is always thrilling to see a giant stumble, especially if you're the one living in its shadow. But the reality is that Europeans should know better. Without a strong United States, a strong dollar, and a strong military on part of the free world, all of our benefits of being allied with the United States would also disappear. And yet the question remains, is there any merit to their assertions? Will this shrine truly fall? Is Afghanistan and the high inflation and the political polarization of the country truly going to bring it to its knees? I don't think so, and here's why. Of the top 10 technology companies by market capitalization, 7 are American, and this is no mere coincidence. For the last 2 decades, the United States have created an environment where incredibly innovative technologies that have revolutionized the world can not only exist, but thrive, and take a large enough piece of the pie to compensate for the incredible impact they have in the world. America has fostered its technological supremacy in several fundamental ways for the last 2 decades. Perhaps the most fundamental one of them is the infrastructure it has in place to guarantee the ability of entrepreneurs to privately exploit creative and innovative ways of doing things. America's intent on preserving private property and the incentive to innovate by not tampering with the potential upside of a good technological innovation promotes exploration and inventiveness. A comfortable taxation policy, relative to other innovative areas of the world, once again redirect the profits of successful innovators toward their reinvestment in expanding their technology, developing new solutions, and continuing to create fantastic inventions. The alternative to this perspective is one that we can see in countries like those in the European Union, that count with similar economic freedoms to create a company, allowing the entrepreneurs to take the costs and risks. But the incentive of innovation is stripped away by taxing the fruits of their technology into oblivion. Note that this perspective is not whether high or low taxation is good for the society at large or other aspects of the economy. This perspective simply outlines that the more you tax a proven engine of innovation, the more of that capital that gets redirected to the one of the least innovative institutions of an economy, the state. Let's put it like this. If you consider an American technology company that has developed a system for drones to execute parcel deliveries perfectly, and another EU-based competitor that does essentially the same thing, probably the American one will succeed in taking over the world, and the European one will end up subsisting on government aid, or small market customers, and eventually maybe even get acquired. The reason for this is simply the flux of capital from innovative engines like the drone companies towards either the state or back to the hands of the innovators. The EU-based drone company will be violently taxed out of a large percentage of their profits, which may or may not go to deserving causes within the economy, but will most certainly not be as productive in further developing their technology as American will. Contrarily to this, the American drone company would benefit from more corporate-friendly infrastructure, generous taxing schemes, and one of the largest and richest domestic markets in the world. By the time the EU-based drone company is still caught up to the inevitable year-long bureaucratic limbo, the US company will have hundreds of thousands of drones cruising through the skies from New York to LA. But what about the other side of the Pacific? What about the Chinese dragon threatening to devour the bold eagle? Well, once again, I do not believe that China will overtake the US by any metric that matters when it comes to technological innovation. Now, that is not to say that they won't have a few successes here and there in one industry or another, but I still believe that the solid foundation of a capitalist system under free democracy will lay the incentives in such a way that will put America ahead. Let's run our drone company experiment once again. This time, instead of an EU-based competitor, the American company will be created at the same time as a Chinese counterpart. For one, the sheer volume and riches of the free capitalist economy of the United States will mean that once the market fit and financial structure of the business has been laid out, the American company will not have much difficulty finding investors. We have come off the end of a 12-year capital-rich boom in which almost any idea with the right basics has been able to find funding. However, this process seems to be slowing down. Sequoia Capital, one of the largest venture capitals in the world, has mentioned in a letter to investors that with the recent rampant inflation and the US technical recession, they warn of a shortening of capital and a change in sentiment in the investment market. However, I believe that even if the economic downturn will make VCs more picky about where to allocate their capital, the cratering stock market will make the investment in new ideas an appealing one. Overall, this shock to the system will cause VCs to be selective, which is a good thing, since many companies during the last decade that received financing eventually proved to be poor investments. So, for our example, I do not think that a company that can revolutionize last-mile delivery will have any trouble finding capital, even now. Its Chinese competitor, however, will either have to receive a loan from a bank, from a Communist Party adjacent VC, or directly from the government themselves. Receiving a loan from a bank has some problems anywhere around the world, especially now with rising interest rates. The price of capital has dramatically increased, and this might be okay for standard consumers needing to finance their mortgage, since all in all it is still a safe bet from the side of the bank, but not so much for an inherently risky moonshot-like C financing a disruptive company without proven market fit that might be unprofitable for many years. If the Chinese company were to go this route, it would be in serious danger of being gobbled up by interest payments, as its revenues struggle to lift off. Certainly not a fantastic idea. The alternative methods of financing are more secure for the up-and-coming Chinese disruptor, but also involve engaging in a Faustian deal. It is not a comfortable experience to be on the hook for cash to the Chinese government. For all the grinding and performance goals that American VCs put their investments through, that's nothing compared to what companies that are or want to be successful in China have to endure. The price of that capital is, simply put, subservience to the Communist Party's whims and desires about what to do and what to say. Even the largest companies in the Middle Kingdom are not excuse of this behavior. There's no company too big to micromanage. A dramatic example of this can be seen in 2021's disappearance of Chinese billionaire Jack Ma, the CEO of Alibaba, a Chinese competitor to Amazon. In an interview with Forbes magazine, Andrew Nathan, a Columbia University professor, indicated that the big picture seems to be that Ma got too big for his britches, both in independent speech as well as in actual financial power. So whether he was detained or voluntarily lay low, either one is a version of the party reasserting its absolute power. Additionally to the steep price to pay to be in the good graces of your creditors, particularly large companies in China must have a CCP-affiliated professional on the board of the company. This kind of micromanaging presence of the government is a much more intense example of the damages of politicians sticking their noses in boards where they do not belong. At least the European troika of regulators and red tapers will not make you disappear if you anger them. Try getting that deal from Mr. Xi Jinping. To our Chinese-based company, the omnipresence of the party's minions and the fact that its existence might be subject to the whims of a remote and sheltered posse of oligarchs is rather concerning. Innovation always suffers when either capital or authority to make decisions is removed from technocrats and visionaries and redirected towards politicians and defenders of the status quo. So, considering all this, I hope I've exposed why I believe that America's powerful technological and economic engine is still roaring and has no intention of stopping. Its most realistic rivals are a sleepy EU who has done nothing but losing international market presence for the last 2 decades, with a weak common currency almost in parity with the US dollar, and also ravaged by the same societal ills that hurt the US, even if not in the same way, be it social polarization, economic inequalities, or populism. And the communist dragon, on the other hand, that is China, who, when looked at more closely, is more akin to an angry salamander, a corrupt dictatorship that every day seems more similar to the aberration of capitalism that Russia has become, a group of oligarchs making decisions for a population on the brink of an economic and social crisis. If the idea of a person who puts profits over everything else is terrifying, here is an even worse image, a group of people who put power over profits. Thanks for watching Rebel Economics. If you liked the video, please consider liking and subscribing to the channel. This was a video that I really wanted to do for so long, but of course, no one knows what the future will look like. There are also other options who will take over the superpower status rather than the US or China. We actually already made a video about this, talking about the option of India becoming the next superpower. So why not check out that video now? And if you want to see the ways in which America is failing the free competitive economy, you can take a look at our video about how monopolies manage to survive and thrive in the 21st century.